In a world where geek culture reigns supreme, there's a hidden gem that shines brighter than any Infinity Stone. Get ready for Huracan, the ultimate comic art convention with a heart.
But what can you expect at Huracan 2024? Get ready for a vibrant tapestry of comic books, writers, artists, toys, food, raffles for unique items, collectibles, cosplay, fellowship, and much more. Previous guests have included renowned comic book professionals and local artists. And let's not forget about the famous raffle table that has gained acclaim as the best raffle table of any convention on Long Island. Huracan just isn't a convention. It's a testament to resilience, community spirit, and power of the geek culture to unite and uplift. So mark your calendars and save the dates for Huracan 2024.
On July 20th, immerse yourself in a world where passion meets purpose. Follow Huracan on Facebook and Instagram, and join us at the Bethany Congregational Church, 100 Main Street in East Rockaway, for an experience like no other. Huracan 2024, the ultimate celebration of geek culture and community. Don't miss out.
Aloha, it's Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be talking to a friend of the podcast, Eisner winner and writer J.M. DeMatteis. Now, he is here to promote his latest Kickstarter campaign, the DeMultiverse Phase 2 and Edward Bloom from Spellbound Comics. Now, when you hear this interview, this campaign will be live. It's already fully funded within like 3 to 4 days. And that's great. That is very good. And I've already backed this on Kickstarter. This campaign ends on August 6th. And I also want to mention, too, that Kickstarter gave it its seal of stamp of approval of Project We Love. JM, welcome back to Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Jason. It's nice to see you again and nice to talk to you again.
No, thank you very much. No, I'm just going to go over, listeners, I'm just going to go over some of JM's, some of his past works. JM, I'm going to say everybody knows you. You know, it's like you have written some episodes from the Justice League Unlimited TV series. You've written for some of the DC animated universe movies such as Superman, Red Sun, Batman, Bad Blood. In comics, oh my God, you have an amazing work in comics. Moon Shadow, Kraven's Last Hunt, Justice League with the late great Keith Giffen. You co-created the Creature Commandos back in the 1980s. The Dr. Fate series with artist Sean McManus. The miniseries, Justice League Gods and Monsters, that 3-part miniseries, and I love that miniseries. I know I told you that the last time.
Worked with Bruce Timm on that one. It was great, yeah.
And then also too, your artist on that one was Matthew Dow Smith. Is that correct?
On the Justice League one?
Yeah, Justice League.
He did one of the stories because we had each of the spotlight issues had a different artist, and Matt did he did the Batman one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, and also too, to listeners, I want to point out some of JM's works that are going to be reprinted, in the coming months, and some of his current works and future projects too. Now, Doctor Strange into Shambhala, that he did with the late great artist Dan Green, that will be reprinted in the Marvel Masterworks Doctor Strange Volume 11. Now, hopefully I got this date correct, but it looks like it's going to be, I got January 21st, 2025. Also,
yeah, you know more than I do, probably.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure about the release dates, but that's okay.
Yeah,
I thought it was a little sooner, but that might be correct.
But I'm going to say if it's a lot sooner, that's great. That's better yet. Yes. Yeah. And also too, Spider-Man, the Spider-Man Batman crossover, and that will be reprinted in the DC versus Marvel Omnibus coming out this September.
Right. That's 2 of them in there. There's the Spider-Man Batman, and I did Spider-Man Batman for Marvel, yes, and Batman Spider-Man for DC, and they're both in there.
Oh, good. Okay, great. But for some reason, I remember the Spider-Man and Batman one with Mark Bagley, where the Joker and
that was Carnage. The Marvel one, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was great. Okay. And then right now he is currently working on Spider-Man Shadow of the Green Goblin miniseries with artist Michael Sta Maria. Now, the last issue will come out on July 31st. He is writing the 4-part DC miniseries Death in the Family, Robin Lives, with artist Rick Leonardi. Now the first issue is already out in stores. Issue 2 comes out on August 14th. JM, you have a lot more work. I've just stumbled across, and correct me if I'm wrong. You're going to be writing a short story in the Spider-Man Black Suit and Blood anthology. That the first issue comes out in August 7th. And correct me if I'm wrong on this. Hopefully I got this correct. Greaser, Gemini Blues #1 with artist Derek Robertson.
No, no, I'm not doing that.
Oh, you're not doing that?
No, I gave him a promotional quote. You must have seen the quote and thought I was writing the book.
I'm sorry. Okay.
So we can plug Derek's book. Plug Derek's book. Go away.
Yes. All right. All right.
Okay.
Did I miss anything, or is there
That's enough for now. That's enough for now. Let's have a chat.
All right. Where can people follow you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on Threads, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on my website, jmdmatteis.com.
And
especially right now, as we're banging the drum for the DeMultiverse, I'm everywhere. Yes. I am omnipresent.
I love it. And also to listeners, also to check out spellboundcomics.com for the first volume of the DeMultiverse trade paperback, or if you're looking for single issues, it's on there. It's on that website.
Well, that's a good jump in. So people should know that although we're launching all the second issues on this Kickstarter, all the first issues and the first trade are available through the Kickstarter. So you can catch up on what you missed, get the new issues. We have all different bundles with different combinations of things, including all the alternate covers. So it's all there on the Kickstarter page.
Some of the covers are great. Let me just give a big shout out to David Baldy, publisher of Spellbound Comics. David, thank you very much for his help setting up this interview. All right, let's just jump right in to the multiverse. Can you just give a brief origin story of how you created the universe, and how did you team up with Spellbound Comics? And
it's a great story because my whole career I've gone back and forth between doing creator-owned work and doing the Marvel, DC, mainstream superhero work, along with my work in prose and TV and movies and all that stuff. And so creator-owned work has been a very, very important part of what I do. I think if I haven't had the option to go off and create my own stories in my own worlds, I don't know if I could have kept doing this all these years, So it's very important to me. And I was intrigued by Kickstarter, seeing all these other folks doing Kickstarters, because I love the idea that it's just the creators and the audience. You're going straight to them. You're having an exchange with them. They're supporting your work. They're making it happen. You're giving them your dreams, and they're sort of helping you realize those dreams. It's a great thing. It's a very intimate thing, really. But I always thought, this is a lot of work. There's no way in hell I can do this.
Yes.
Just too much. It's too much. So David and I met because, David worked in the TV business for a good 20 years as a producer and a writer. So he's a creative guy. He's also a businessman with a very, very smart business head, which is something I do not have. And he took one of my writing workshops, and we got to know each other. We were talking one day and about Kickstarters. And he said, well, I'll help you do one. And I thought, oh, that'd be great, because to do it with a partner, then I can do the parts that I think that I can excel at, and he can do the parts that he can excel at, and we'll get this across the finish line. So what are we going to do? Well, he said, what ideas have you got? So I threw out, 4 different ideas. And David was the one who said, ooh, let's do all of them. Let's do 4 number 1s, put them out there, get 4 ideas out there at once, and then let the people that support the Kickstarter vote on what book they want to have continue, and hopefully eventually we will continue them all. I thought that was a brilliant idea, because how often do I get to put so many ideas out in the world at once?
Yes.
So we did that, and we set to work finding artists. We found great artists. The fun thing about it too is that each book is very, very different. And they're not, it's not like 4 different superhero books or something. They're all in different genres. They all have a different flavor. Layla in the Lands of After with Sean McManus is a big fantasy adventure that takes place in the afterlife. Wisdom with Tom Mandrake is a supernatural Western. Any Man with David Baldion is the closest thing to a traditional superhero, but as you dive into the story, you realize it's not as traditional as you thought when you first started. There are twists and twists. And as you'll see in the second issue, there are more twists on top of those twists. And then Godsend, the first issue of Godsend was done by my buddy Matthew Dow Smith. did a beautiful job with that. He was not able to return for the second issue, so we have Scott Koblish on the second issue.
Yes, and he's a very good artist too.
Fantastic, fantastic. He brings the Kirby to the table. He's done a great job. And so we got all these books out there into the world, and when everyone voted at the end, one of the choices we gave them, you could pick one book or you could pick all the books. And what got the most votes? Do them all. So here we are back with second issues of all 4 books, plus our bonus book, the Edward Gloom Mysteries, which we slipped in as an extra.
Yes.
It's not part of the main DeMultiverse, but it's its own little thing. And it's a wonderful kind of Charles Dickens meets Frankenstein, kind of interesting story with wonderful art by an extremely talented Greek artist named Vasilis Godzilis.
All right, I'm going to start off. Let's talk about Layla in the lands of after. For listeners, who is Layla?
Well, the premise is Layla is just your average 13-year-old girl, and she's riding home from her friend's house on her bike one night and is enveloped in this light, swept up into the air, and like Dorothy over the rainbow, finds herself in this strange, magical other land,
Yes.
Except what she discovers is that light was the light of an oncoming car that mowed her down, and this is the afterlife, and she's dead. And thus begins her adventure through the lands of after, and her attempt to get back to her body before the door between both worlds closes. And that's again illustrated by my buddy Sean McManus, one of the best artists I've ever worked with, and one of the nicest people on the planet. The color, I always like to mention everybody, the color is by a wonderful colorist named Arthur Hesley.
Yes.
And Taylor Esposito did the lettering. He lettered a lot of these books. Really amazing letterer. So it scratches my big fantasy itch. I love, like I did a Badazan and the Stardust Kid with Mike Plug.
Yes.
I like this idea of creating these fantasy worlds from the ground up. And in this case, the different worlds are the worlds in the afterlife. So it gets to be philosophical and metaphysical and yet playful and fun. It's the Wizard of Oz if Oz was where you go when you're dead.
Yes. Yes. That's the thing I love about it. And also listen, actually, because I backed the trade on this, and what I loved about in the trade was you have like one page of explaining this is why I did this story.
Right. I wrote introductions for all the stories. Yeah. In the first trade. Yeah.
I'm just asking, are you going to do that for this, for the volume 2, like some type of?
Well, we haven't talked about it, but there is a possibility. I will know, the first book had an introduction by Tom DeFalco. The second book, the introduction will be by Danny Fingeroth, who was a longtime Spider-Man editor at Marvel, who wrote the recent best-selling biography of Stan Lee, A Marvelous Life. So Danny's writing the introduction for the second one. And I have not quite decided yet whether I'm going to do intros for all the stories, since I kind of explained them all in the first issue. So I'm not sure if it's necessary. But if I think of something brilliant to say, I will include it. But we will have extras in the trade for sure. We'll have lots of extras.
Yeah. Okay. So already Layla's in the afterlife. Who is Boris? Yes.
Boris is Layla's cat who died when she was little, and who is there along with her late grandfather to greet her when she shows up in the lands of after. So she's on this adventure with her grandfather, with her cat, who in this world can speak. Yes, has a very interesting, slightly cutting personality, as you would expect a cat to have. and then along the way, she encounters a character called Sewell, who is a not quite fallen angel.
Yes.
Who was a very important part of the story. And on they go on this adventure, trying to figure out how to get Layla back, and if they can get Layla back before that door closes.
Before we start moving on, I love this story because, like you said, it's a nice fantasy story that's fun. I love the artwork, and I love Sean's artwork on this. It's just so fun. It's, even if there's like little suspenseful dark moments because there's a dark force and stuff. Arthur's colors, they're still bright. It's not very, it's a fun, scary thing. I
Yeah,
love that
if
story.
it was a movie, it's not that dark cinematography that's very popular now, where you squint to see the to
Yeah.
see what's going on in the scene. This is Technicolor Oz. The
Yes.
coloring is beautiful. And Sean, I was just talking to somebody about this. Sean's work, even when it's very serious and very dark, there's always a slightly playful quality to
Yes.
his work,
Hmm.
and it really makes his work very unique and very special.
Yes. Um, what is so what happens in issue 2, if you can talk about that?
Well, I don't really want to tell you,
Then
but when we
don't then let's
when we left, well, because then I don't want to even give away where we left off, because there are
That's
people
true
that are
too.
coming on the first time.
That's
Let's just say,
true.
let me say with all these books, is first issues are like pilots for TV shows.
Hmm.
You want to get the flavor across, you want to establish the world and the rules, you want to get the adventure moving, but you can't, it's like if I was building a building and I just showed
Hmm.
you the foundation and the blueprint.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like
Yes.
you're not in the building yet.
Hmm.
So now we're building the building. We're building up and we're building out, and the stories are starting to reach out and expand. So all these stories are
Hmm.
going to get deeper and wider and taller with the
Hmm.
second issues.
Okay. Let's go. I'm going to talk about, let's move on to Any Man. What is Any Man about?
So Any Man, on first look, we think it's a very traditional superhero story.
Yes.
He claims it appears to be this portal opens in the 1960s in the middle of Times Square, and
Hmm.
through it comes this character who claims he's the last survivor of an ancient race, like from the days of ancient Atlantis,
Hmm.
and it was a perfect golden age, but something happened, that world collapsed, and he was
Hmm.
chosen to go into the future, to this pivotal time in the future, to
Hmm.
prevent the same thing from happening here.
Yes.
It's not a world with other superheroes in it. So he becomes kind of the first global superhero
Yes.
who's there always to help. And everyone loves him, except when we go behind the scenes. And again, I don't want to give it away. And we
No, yes,
discover
no.
who and what he really is not what he says he is, and
Hmm.
not what he pretends to be. And there are twists and twists and twists. And I don't want to give too much away,
No.
but that's the fun of it. And again, David Baldion, what's wonderful with David, he can do big superhero action,
Hmm.
but there are a lot of quiet, intimate, emotional moments too, and he can do
Yes.
those beautifully as well. He's really, really very talented, and he's, compared to the rest of us that are working on these books, he's pretty new to the business, relatively speaking.
Oh, okay.
And he's
Hmm.
got so, I mean, I don't mean he's not brand new, but he's, I've been doing this for 40 years. So next to me, he's brand new, Um, and I just can't wait to see how he continues to evolve and grow in the years to come, because he's phenomenal right now. He's perfect for this series.
Yes, he is. Um, this is my favorite story in the book.
Any man?
Yes. There's
Hmm.
a couple layers to this story. And like you said, I don't want to, we can't really talk about, because I
I know
love it.
it's sort of like, you're looking at a tree, but there's all these roots under the tree that you can't
Yes.
see. And that's what
Mhm.
you discover in this story. You think you know what the tree is like, but then you see the roots and it's something completely different. So I
Yes.
want to hold that surprise for the people.
Yes. Because again, I love the twists in the story. Like I said, it's very good. I love this story. Um, let's move on to the next one. Godsend. Now, you described it, Godsend. It's Jack Kirby meets the Matrix meets Philip K. Dick.
Right.
What is the story for the listeners? What is the story about?
Well, I love Jack Kirby, and I love New Gods are probably my
Yes.
favorite
Hmm.
comics of all time. Uh, Godsend explores the theme, which is also themes that run through Philip K. Dick's work. And the reason I love these writers is because these are the themes that I'm obsessed with in my life.
Hmm.
The themes of who we are, who we think we are,
Hmm.
versus how we're perceived by the world,
Hmm.
versus who we really are. So there are those questions for us personally, but then there are those questions about reality, what we perceive reality to be
Hmm.
versus what it really is.
Hmm.
And so we get our main character is a man named Eric Small, and as his name
Yes.
indicates, he is someone who sees himself that way,
Hmm.
kind of small and
Hmm.
worthless and struggling and lonely, He's got like one good friend in the world, and he's sort of the embodiment of that little voice that we all have at the back of our head, or that many people have. I shouldn't say that we all have.
Oh, yeah.
You know, those moments that we all have where we think, oh, you know, you just that, you're small, you're tiny, you're meaningless, your life doesn't amount to anything. And into this world descends this blue-skinned, godlike being that the media dubs Godsend. And Eric becomes obsessed with him.
Yes.
Just completely obsessed with him. He can't sleep. He has to watch the news. He has to see what's next. He has to read. Something happens when he sees this being that awakens something inside him. And you know, you don't want to give away, again, you don't want to give away too much, but I think we kind of tipped this in our video, that what he discovers at the end of the story, although he has no idea how or why, but he and Godsend are one and the same. And that's the beginning of his journey. Well, his journey begins when this strange turtle being appears in his living room and reveals his identity to him. So it's like reality gets turned inside out, personal identity up for grabs. And that's just, like I said, that's just the foundation. That's just the, you know, that's the tarmac at the airport for us to take off from. And in the second issue, we introduce a bunch of new characters, and the story just expands. And in my head, with all these, I know what's coming. You know what I mean? And like Godsend, there will be dozens of characters coming, you know, into this story. It will be epic and cosmic, and yet I hope also very, very personal and human at the same time. So it's a great one. And like I said, Matthew Dale Smith did an amazing job on the first issue, and Scott Koblish has done a fantastic job on the second. And again, color is by James Devlin, who a few years back colored my Berger book series, The Girl in the Bay, and letters are by Taylor Esposito. And Matt Smith did the alternate cover.
Oh, yes.
Did our variant cover.
Yes.
And I forgot to mention that on Layla, the variant cover is done by Marguerite Sauvage. If you're familiar with her work, she's just extraordinary. Has such a unique, magical, colorful style. Perfect for Layla.
So before I continue on talking about Godsend, because this time, now correct me if I'm wrong, because this time around, I think you've gotten like Marguerite Sauvage, some well-established artists to come on board for this volume, right?
Right. We had 4 great artists doing variant covers for the first, and we want to keep up that tradition. So we got 4 really, really great people.
You know, because
we got Marguerite Sauvage, we have Patch Zurcher is doing the variant cover for Wisdom, and Derek Robertson of The Boys fame is doing the variant cover for Any Man.
Yeah. And then also Liam Sharp is doing, I guess.
And Liam Sharp, who did the collected edition cover the first time, is back with the cover for the second. Liam, I have to say, give him credit. He just got nominated for 2024 Eisner, and which is well deserved. I first worked with Liam back in the 90s. I knew then what an extraordinary talent he was. So it's nice to see him get his first Eisner Award nomination.
That's nice. That is really nice. I'm asking, so how did Patch and Marguerite and Derek, how did they come aboard for this one? Like, did you guys make calls to them, or did they go?
Yeah, you know, you just kind of think about, well, who could we get? Who would be really, really good for this? Now, so Patch and I got to know him a little bit the past few years. We were working on a pitch for Marvel that unfortunately didn't sell, but we had a great time working on it, and I admire his work and he admires mine. So we called him in, and he wanted to do Wisdom. He wanted to do the Western. You know, so that was great. So that was perfect. And if you look around on my social media feeds, you'll see the covers, beautiful cover that he did. So that's how he came in. Marguerite, I didn't know, but I was familiar with her work and loved it, and just thought she would be so perfect for Layla.
Yes.
So I just reached out to her, I think through Instagram or something. And she said yes. So that worked out beautifully. Derek and I know each other a little bit. Derek, one of the first stories, if not the first story that he ever had published, was a Justice League story back when Giffen and I were doing the Justice League. And so, you know, we have a connection that goes way back. We also share a manager. So that was easy to reach out to Derek, and he was happy to do it. And then obviously getting Matt Smith back to do the Godsend cover was easy, you know, since he'd done the first issue. And I love his cover. It's so direct and so powerful. So, you know, they all jumped in. And then Liam, like I said, I know Liam forever. He did the first collected edition, and he was happy to come back to do the second. And there's sort of thematic brothers and sisters, these covers, so that all, as we go on, each cover will be a reflection and a building on the cover before. He's done a beautiful job.
I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to Godsend. I love this first issue. I'm not going to spoil anything, you know. And I know um it I know you talked about Philip K. Dick, influenced this story, Jack Kirby. For me, I also thought it kind of was a little bit of a nod to Ray Bradbury too.
Well, it's interesting. I wouldn't think about that, but the truth is, if I was making a list of my literary heroes, Bradbury is right up at the top with, like, Dickens and other people. I have loved Bradbury for years. No, love is too small a word. I adore Ray Bradbury. So if there's a little Bradbury that crept in there, that's fine with me. But as I said, these are themes that I respond to in other media, because these are themes that obsess me as a person. Our search for personal identity, our search for meaning. It's really about the search for meaning, and is there a God? And if there is, what does this all mean? Or if there isn't, what does this all mean? And we all have the primal search, whether we realize it or not. We want to know who we are. And we want to know why are we here? Why does this world exist? And what is our purpose here? And that is the overriding theme of Godsend, as our characters go on this journey, hopefully while they're having big cosmic adventures with a little bit of slam and bang to keep everybody entertained,
Because the other thing too, I love the character Eric Small, because you really get into his head. And it's a character I connect with, because it's like, he's talked about all his doubts, his fears, and this character, it's just the character, how you wrote Eric Small is, it's a character I connect with. It's great. I just love it.
Well, as I said, I feel like we all have an Eric Small somewhere in our psyche. So I think we can all relate to that. He's like an embodiment of one voice in our heads, and it's a voice that I think a lot of people have, in our lowest moments, in our weakest moments, when we really feel like, maybe this all isn't worth it. Maybe I'm not worth it, And so the question is, then, if that's who you think you are, what if it turns out that you are far, far more than that? And to be honest, that's what I believe about all of us. I believe that we are all far, far more than that. And we're all far taller and more powerful and more majestic and beautiful than we can ever dream. And that's one of the themes that runs through this story.
So listeners, if you guys get a chance, check out, Godsend. It's very good in this collection. Let's move. I'm going to move on. Wisdom. What is Wisdom about? And I know you have a big love for Westerns.
Yeah. Well, I wrote about, as you said, in the first collected edition, when I was a kid, when I was little, Westerns, and I'm older than you, so I'm talking about, like, we're talking early 60s, when I'm like, 6, 7 years old or whatever it is. Two-thirds of the shows on television were Westerns. Half the toys we played with were cowboys, or back in the days when it was okay to buy your kid toy guns. You'd strap on your 6-gun and put on your cowboy hat, and then go home and watch 32 Westerns. And I have pictures of me 4 years old, dressed like a cowboy on my hobby horse, riding my horse. I still have on my shelf behind me a Roy Rogers action figure on his horse, Trigger, that I got literally for my 4th birthday. So that love is kind of generationally sewn in, because it was such a part of my childhood. And then I got older, and Westerns sort of lost the appeal to me. And then a few years back, I'm a big fan of old radio. And I turned on the old radio station on Sirius XM and stumbled across Gunsmoke, the Gunsmoke radio show. And it was like, oh my God, this is really, really good. And that just kind of lit that fuse in the back of my head. And when I get ideas, what happens often is I wake up in the morning, or I'm in the shower, or I'm just walking along, and suddenly I see a movie playing in my head. Well, I literally woke up one morning and saw this Western movie in my head. And I don't know what it is. I'm watching it as if I'm watching something on television. Well, what is this? And I see this Western unfold, and I realize it's a supernatural Western. And all these things start coming. So the trick is to run into my office and start to write. And then, over the course of the next few weeks, I had, and this is maybe 10, 12 years ago, maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
I had 50 pages of notes for what turned into sort of, I call it Lord of the Rings in the Old West, which you only get a small flavor of in the beginning, because it's in the beginning where it's much more intimately focused. You get hints of what's to come, but it's really about just the characters. So it's a big mystical adventure like Lord of the Rings, but set in the world of the Old West. And our main character is a guy named Gabriel Wisdom, who starts off as really, the quintessential innocent dreamer whose dreams keep crashing and burning wherever he goes. He's got a loving wife and a beautiful daughter. And then one night tragedy strikes and his house burns, and he thinks his wife and daughter have been killed, and he sees these strange phantom riders riding off.
Yes.
And thus begins the change. When we jump into the story toward the end of the story, where with this massive Lord of the Rings style battle that's about to take place with all these humans on their horses with their six guns, versus these demonic horsemen, thousands of them. But we don't know how we got there. That's the moment that we're leading to later on in the story. And what we're going to see is Wisdom's evolution from this innocent man to a murderous gunslinger. We'll see in the second issue his transformation into a very dark and violent man, and then the beginnings of what happened to turn him into essentially a sorcerer of the Old West, who's been charged with defending the world from these forces that are coming. It's a very deep dive. Tom Mandrake, who is really, if you want supernatural comics, if you want great Western comics, he's your man. He's just great. And beautiful job. It's being colored by Justin Prokowicz, or perhaps it's I'm not sure if it's Prokowicz or Prokovich, but it's one way or the other. But he's done a beautiful job on that. And once again, lettered by Taylor Esposito.
Oh, yes. And
I mean, think about forget the writing for a minute. Just think about all the artists I've named already that are involved with this. It's like a murderer's row of great artistic talent. It's worth signing on for this just for the artwork. Yes. Even if you hate the stories, folks, the art is amazing.
No, but the writing and the art, they go hand in hand. It's great.
Thank you.
I'm going to say with Wisdom, after I finished reading the first issue of Wisdom, I get to the end and I'm going, I cannot wait to see what happens in the second issue.
Good. Well, that's what you hope. I tried to make sure every book ended with a hook.
Yes, that one did.
Yeah, good.
Okay. So you talked a little bit about Edward Gloom's mysteries. It's like Charles Dickens, Frankenstein story.
Imagine if Frankenstein, along with being this monster cobbled together from parts of the dead by a crazy inventor, happens to be the most sensitive soul on the planet. He's a poet. He's a musician. He's a historian. He's a philosopher. He's a novelist. And he's also very afraid of the world. He doesn't want to go out into the world. He's had sort of a traumatic upbringing, being this cobbled together creature. And it's Edward and his beloved girlfriend, who also happens to be a ghost, and his sort of Phantom of the Opera sidekick, and his little orphan. So it's this little group of people that get drawn out into this mystery. Well, some of them are people, some of them are not. That gets drawn out into this mystery when their city is invaded by this monster swarm. That we find out that the woman who created him, Serena Fahrenheit, is behind this, and she's trying to draw him out because she wants her son back.
Oh, that's going to be pretty good. Oh,
so it kind of takes place in its own time, in its own world. It's sort of, it's got modern touches, but it's very much Dickensian London at the same time. Dickensian London with cell phones, I guess.
All right. I want to start going into some of the tiers now. Listeners, I know, when you go onto the Kickstarter webpage, you can either buy individual issues, the collected trade, or as JM has mentioned earlier, there's also like the ultimate bundle where you can get all the printed I think one of them is like the ultimate bundle.
Yeah, I think with the ultimate you can get the first and second issues, both print and digital, and both trade collections. You get everything.
Yes,
everything. But you can also you can get the number ones as add-ons. There's a lot of different ways to go.
Yes.
Plus we have some t-shirts, there'll be autograph books, and we just announced that I'm doing only 5 Zoom calls, 40-minute Zoom calls with people in a special tier. And with the Zoom call, you'll get the second collected edition as well.
I'm going to ask, do you want to talk about the one with the Zoom call? Like,
oh, I did that last time, and we like I said, we keep it small because it's a little pricier because it's a big deal. But I enjoyed it so much, because I find in general with my work, when I meet people that read and enjoy my work, they're really nice people. They just are. And I spoke to whatever it was, 4 or 5 really, really nice people. We sat and we talked. They got to ask me whatever they wanted. I got to talk to them about their lives too, which was really fun to learn about them. And people from all over the world, from England, from Italy. It was amazing. So I'm looking forward to doing that again. It's really, really special. And then it helps the Kickstarter as well. So I was talking to somebody about this earlier. The comic book community, not just the professional, but professionals and fans. It's like we're all part of this extended family. And people like you that do these podcasts, and we get to sit and we get to talk and we get to enjoy each other's company. It's a nice thing that we share this love and we share this passion, and we get to connect about it and share our thoughts and ideas and our enthusiasms together.
Oh, yes. Jam, thank you very much. All right. One more question for the Kickstarter, and then we're going to start moving on to some other stuff. How much fun are you having playing in your own sandbox, writing these stories?
It's always fun to be able to create a universe from the ground up. It's just me in the beginning, before the artists enter the picture. It's just me and my imagination. And there's, the doors from the unconscious open up, and here come all these new worlds. And then you have the joy of sharing those worlds with the artist, who begins to take the visions in my head and deepen and expand them through the visuals. One of my favorite things about working in comics to this day is when the art comes in, because it doesn't matter how long it stays in my head, until someone puts it down on paper in the visuals, it doesn't exist. And when the artwork comes in through an email, what it does to me, it brings back the pleasure of being like 8 or 9 years old, laying on my living room floor, reading a comic book, opening that book and turning that page and going, wow. And I still have that feeling when I see the artwork. It's, wow, this is great. I have so much respect, because I was an artist first. I spent my entire childhood drawing. I almost went to art school. My parents couldn't afford it. And then I kind of got moved off into the writing side of things. But because of that, I just have so much respect for these guys who can pick up a pencil or a pen and create this stuff out of thin air. It's wonderful. It's just wonderful. So that to me is still maybe the single most magical part of doing this. Yes, having the idea is incredible. When that door from my unconscious opens up and these ideas are coming, that one minute they're not there, the next minute they're there, and suddenly it's gushing out and I have to run to write it down. But then when the artwork appears and these guys bring my visions to life and add their vision to it, it's a fantastic experience. And it is the pure joy of comics in that moment.
Now I want to talk about Doctor Strange into Shambhala. This is there was an original graphic novel back in the 80s from Marvel. And you worked with the late great artist Dan Green. It's never been reprinted, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to be the first time it's going to be reprinted in the Marvel Masterworks Doctor Strange Volume 11 that's going to be coming out in the next few months. What is the story about?
Doctor Strange has always been one of my favorite characters, not just in the Marvel universe, but in any comic book universe. I've always felt a deep connection to that character. And Dan Green was a good friend of mine. We were friends and neighbors. Our families knew each other. Our kids grew up together. And, at one point, we had never worked together, and we just said, let's do something. And he shared my love of Doctor Strange, and Dan and I built this story together. He co-plotted the story with me. And most people know Dan as an inker.
Yes.
But Dan was also a massively talented painter. And this is one of the few painted works that he's done in comics. It might be the only painted work he's done in comics. It's some of the most beautiful artwork you're ever going to see. So it's basically a story where Doctor Strange is approached by these masters these 5 masters from the other dimensional world of Shambhala,
Mhm.
who tell him he's going to be the agent to bring about a golden age
Mhm.
across the world. Transform. That's the end of all pain,
Mhm.
all suffering. Here comes the golden age. The problem is, in order to do that, he has to weave this spell that will destroy the world. The world has to be destroyed in
Mhm.
order to be reborn. And this is the problem Doctor Strange has faced as he goes on a journey that's not just an outer journey, but an inner journey of growth for him as well. So it's everything I love about Doctor Strange. You know,
Uh-huh.
it's spiritual, it's mystical, it's metaphysical, but it's also
Mhm.
human. What I love about Doctor Strange, if you go back to his origin story, he's a real guy who gets
Yes.
pulled into this world, but he's a real guy that you can relate to with his own flaws and his arrogance and everything else, you know? So Into Shambhala is one of my favorite things that I've ever done. Came out as a graphic novel in the mid 80s, eventually went out of print.
Mhm.
And I've got copies that have been, I have a beautiful copy from Italy, a big oversized hardcover, been printed in other countries,
Yes.
never been reprinted here. So
Mhm.
finally, it will be back in this beautiful format in the next Doctor Strange Marvel Masterworks. So I got to write a nice afterword for the story about my friendship with Dan, about our collaborative process, and a little tribute to him, who he only passed away, you know, last year. And just hugely talented guy, a good, really good person, and you know, the past couple of years, Keith Giffen passed away, Dan
Yes.
passed away. It's been a few people. Michael Zulli just passed away the other
Yes.
day.
Yes.
It's, you know, these are people that I knew and worked with,
Mhm.
and it's not to get too dour here, but
No,
it's sad, you know,
yes,
it's
it
really
is. No,
sad.
yes.
It's really sad. You know, Michael Zulli gave me this beautiful painting years ago. It was with the cover to Seekers into the Mystery. That was a Vertigo book that I did, and he did an arc.
Mhm.
And he did this beautiful painted cover, and it's gigantic, which he gave me as a housewarming gift back in the 90s. And it's been hanging in my house ever since, you know, and you know, since I heard he passed away, that painting has taken on even more meaning, you know. It's very sweet to have that there. And, you know, or with Dan, you know, my son and Dan's daughter grew up together. They're still good friends. Keith and I had a relationship, you know, we worked together for 30 years.
Yes.
So, you know, you use the phrase the late great. And I said to somebody, I'm getting tired of using the phrase late great in front of people's names. You know, it's like, I think everyone needs to just stay healthy and keep living right now. But let's move on.
Yeah, no.
But you know, you know, three just, and Don Perlin died recently as well. Don, who I worked
Yes.
with on Defenders. Don, thank goodness, you know, lived to the ripe old age of like 94.
Mhm.
You know, when I first started working with Don, I was probably in my 20s and he was in his late 40s or early 50s or something. Never treated me like I was the new kid on the block.
Mhm.
Always treated me with respect and as an equal, and I always appreciated that.
Jam, thank you very much for sharing. Just thank you very much for sharing that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Because yes, because like, yeah, because I remember Dan Green as an inker from the Avengers when I know you know, I've seen his work in a lot of things, you know,
Inked
done,
X-Men for years and years and years. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
People who don't know Dan's painted work are going to be blown away by Shambhala.
so
And I also hope that maybe after this, Marvel will do a standalone, maybe oversized hardcover that would really showcase that beautiful artwork, because it's just
yes.
beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Um, I want to talk about um some of your current works right now. Spider-Man, Shadow of the Green Goblin. You know, just real quickly, what is that story about?
Oh, this has been a fun one, really, really a fun one.
Yes.
Um, it takes place in the very, very early days of Peter Parker being Spider-Man. It's within the first month after Uncle Ben has died.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done a couple of shorter stories set in that period, and it really, really fascinates me because, you know, when you're a kid reading Spider-Man, Spider-Man seems like a grown-up.
Mm-hmm.
When you're an adult, you realize when he started being Spider-Man, he's like 15 years old.
Yes.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, he's just a kid. He doesn't know anything, and
Mm-hmm.
he's recovering, not even recovering. He's still dealing with this grief of Uncle Ben's murder,
Mm-hmm.
and dealing with his own guilt about it, and dealing with Aunt May's grief, and she's dealing with his grief. And suddenly he's got these powers, and he's going to try to be a hero. What 15-year-old kid could possibly handle that? So it's about him stepping into his power as Spider-Man, but it's a story about family. It's a story about his relationship with Aunt May and how they struggle through their
Yes.
grief. It's a story about the Stacy family, because Gwen's mom is dying at this point, and how she and her dad, Captain Stacy, have to deal with that. And it's a story about the wonderfully dysfunctional Osborne family.
Yes.
Harry and Norman, and there's a plot line also that, well, we're already in the third issue, so people know, that brings in Harry's mother, who they believed was dead.
Yes.
So, I love the Osborne family because they're just such a big dysfunctional stew, and it's so interesting to write about Harry and Norman and now Emily, the mom, and they're all in such pain and so screwed up and so interesting, each one in their own way. So it's these three different families all dealing with their pain and their struggles. And of course, the big slam and bang, because we pick up on a story that was done years ago, where they established a character called the Proto-Goblin. Norman Osborn was experimenting with that formula, and he took one of his assistants and injected him with this stuff and turned him into this monstrous thing, the Proto-Goblin, who has now returned to seek vengeance on Norman. So, and then the Sandman shows up in it. It's a wonderful encounter with the Sandman in the second issue. It's just been a really, really fun series, and the fourth issue will be out next month. But I think I'm sure you can get to your comic shop and find the first three issues, I hope. If not, there will be a collected edition a few months down the line. But it's been great. And Michael St. Maria, who is the artist, yeah, I know. You see his name is STA. I thought, what is Sta Maria? But that's just an abbreviation for St. Maria, is what I learned. I didn't know either. No. He's another time. So I'm working, here he is. He's brand new to me. I've never seen his work before. Very, very talented. And it's a joy to me to watch new artists when he started out really good in the first issue, and every issue he's stretching and spreading his wings more and getting better and better with every issue. So it's been really a joy to work with him. He's a very, very talented guy. I'm working really, really hard on this and doing a great job. So that's been a really, really fun series. This is the third Spider-Man series I've done in the past few years, each of these little mini series that in different periods in the past. But, the thing is, with these kind of projects, people call them nostalgia projects. If that's all they are, then they're worthless. You want to do a story that means something. You want to do a story that has psychological and emotional meaning to it. So that's what I've tried to do with all of these. And then we can transition, and that's what I'm trying to do with Robin Lives. How's that for a transition?
Yes. I read the first issue, finished it last night. It's very good. And like you said, it deals with a lot of, it's one of those layered books where there's a lot of issues going on. It's not just, but yeah, so please continue. Yes, I love it.
So, DC called me up and they basically said, as we all know, the famous story when they had the 800 number and call up, will Robin live or die? That slightly tacky event that they did.
Yes.
But it was a very successful event.
It was, yes.
It was hugely successful. I think it was a really a big deal at the time. And, the comics themselves, Jim Starlin and Jim Aparo, each in their own right are just great, but together they were a great team.
Yes.
Starlin's one of my favorite creators, and one of my great regrets is I never got to work with Jim Aparo. I just love his work. So the vote was, Jason Todd dies, so he died. But they had to do two versions, in case they voted for him to live. And I guess they recently reprinted the version where he lived.
Yes.
And so I was tasked with the story of like, well, okay, what happened? So he lived. What happens next? And Rick Leonardi's doing the art, doing a beautiful job with the art. And what happens? Well, this kid almost died. He watched his mother die. He's completely traumatized by what's happened. He's trying to pretend that he's not, as most people, when they go through traumatic events, I'm fine. He is so not fine. But he's not the only one who's not fine. Bruce Wayne is not fine either, because Bruce Wayne is having to face the question of, why did I do this in the first place? Why did I bring this kid into this world? And now, because of me, this kid almost died.
Yes.
And he's traumatized. And that who knows what damage I have done to him. And so, that's, we kind of suspend disbelief with comics.
Yes.
For many years in the old days, kid sidekicks, no one gave a thought about it. But the more comics grew up and the more you made these worlds realistic, the more the question became, why are you doing this? How
Mhm.
could you possibly do this? And there are psychological reasons why Bruce is doing it.
Mhm.
He, as much as he pretends to be a loner and an outsider, he's desperate for family. He watched his
Mhm.
family die, and he is desperate for family.
Mhm.
And these kids have become his family, along with Alfred and the whole Batman family that's out there.
Yes.
One of the things that comes up, I don't know if it's in the first issue or the second issue. I don't want to give too much away. He has a discussion with, I think, with Alfred, and it's sort of like, oh yeah, you're a loner. That's why you're in the Justice League, because you're a loner. He likes to, he goes back to what we were saying about Godsend. Who we think we are versus who we really are. He
Yes.
likes to think he's this loner, but he's a man, in my view. Someone else. Great thing about these characters, you can all take a different perspective. In my view, he's a man who pretends to be a loner who is desperate for connection and for family.
Yes.
But that desperation has put Jason in this horrible situation,
Mhm.
and he's got to deal with that. And then the Joker's out there as our wild card. Joker. We
Yes.
start Joker is in Arkham now, but it's the Joker. Will he stay there? I
Mhm.
wonder. And it was fun. I got to bring in a bunch of other Batman villains. The Scarecrow's in the first issue, and that was a
Yes.
great sequence with the Scarecrow, and Leonardi did a beautiful job with that sequence. So it's been great to sort of go back to Gotham City. I haven't written Batman in a while.
Mhm.
And it turned out that while I was starting work on that, I got approached about writing an episode of the new Batman animated series, Cape Crusader, that's on Amazon. So I was working on this animated Batman thing
Yes.
and working on this miniseries at the same time. So
Mhm.
I suddenly, after not writing Batman for a while, was like, living and breathing Gotham City for quite a
Mhm.
while there. And it's been great to reacquaint myself with the characters.
Oh, that's so great. Jam, thank you very much. Um, One last question before actually three more questions. Promote
Sure.
your newsletter.
Right. How do you promote a newsletter? That's a good question.
There's some because there's some listeners that are probably go, oh, I love your work, but how else do I,
Right. Yeah. Well, first of all, if you want to find me, you can find me on social media and on my website.
Mhm.
So that's easy. I have a newsletter. I'm not one of those people that sends out a newsletter a week. If I
Okay.
send out 3 or 4 a year, that's it.
But I think that's
And
good enough.
and when I do it, I also put a link on social media so you can go to the newsletter and you can also sign up to receive it directly. So
Mhm.
the next time I do put a newsletter out there, and I don't overload it. I hit the
Mhm.
big news. This is what's going on.
Yeah.
Hope you're having a great summer. See you in the fall, kind of thing. But we live in a world where really, kind of what we started talking about the Kickstarter, where this wall between creator and audience is thinner and thinner. So
Mhm.
we're interacting with the audience in all new ways now, and it's a really, really nice thing. It's a
Yes.
really nice thing. So yes, so the next time I get a newsletter out, you'll be able to go sign up for it, and it'll also be on all my social media platforms as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any convention or bookstore appearances, either in August or later this year?
Well, I have not done a convention since pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
The pandemic stopped that cold.
Yeah.
And I've been very, very leery about stepping into a hall with thousands of people ever since.
No, okay.
So, but strangely enough, in December,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to Brazil to CCXP,
Yes.
which turns out is the biggest convention in the world. So
Mhm.
after all these months of like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I'm just diving in, to the giant convention. So I'm looking forward to that. I've never been to Brazil before. And I know there's a massive comic book audience there, obviously, if this convention is
Yes.
that big. And if that goes well,
Mhm.
if I can handle that and if I don't completely freak out, then next year I will start doing some regular convention going in because I miss the conventions. It's a lot of fun for the
Yes.
same reasons we've been talking about. You get to sit and meet people that read and enjoy your work and have nice conversations with them. It's
Yeah. Right. Any closing words to our listeners?
Yeah, I guess I'll return it to the multiverse.
Yes.
Anyone that's been following my work, I've been doing this for a long time.
Mhm.
This project is one of the most exciting projects I've ever been involved in because again, it's all coming from this imagination out, and thanks to these wonderful artists and David Baldy, I'm getting to manifest this vision and get all these ideas out in the world at once.
Mhm.
And the reality of a Kickstarter is, the old cliche, we can't do it without you.
Mhm.
In this case, it's not a cliche, it's the truth.
Mhm.
We cannot do it without you. So if you are listening and if you are a fan and supporter of my work, I would ask you to come along for the ride. Hop on over to Kickstarter, see which package you'd like. and help us, because if we get this over the finish line, you know, the as I said, the initial goal is just an initial goal. We need to really get a lot farther to ensure that there will be a third DeMultiverse and a fourth round of the DeMultiverse. So you can support this vision and help continue to get it out in the world. And I am so grateful to every single person, and I really mean this sincerely, every person that has supported us so far. And it's just, we're early. It's just the first few days, you know, every person that supported us and every person that will come along with us. I thank the people that have done it, and I'm thanking everyone else in advance. Thank you, because it means the world to everybody that's involved in this project. It's really, there's something very magical about this. You know, it's a lot of work having to go out there and bang the drum for 30 days. And part of me thinks that, oh God, I have to do another tweet. Are they going to think I'm just so obnoxious? He's doing it again, you know? But unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, what I learned last time is social media is a wild beast. So I may put out a tweet or a post on Blue Sky or Facebook or whatever at noon, and at 1 o'clock, you know, there's 5, 10, 20,000 different people on social media that didn't see that other one. And what also someone said to me last time, you're going to find that after a month of doing this, someone's going to walk up to you and say, oh, you had a Kickstarter? And they didn't even know.
Yes.
You know, because you think you're just flogging it and flogging it and flogging it, and you still aren't reaching all the people that you want to reach. So for the next month, I am going to be out there with my drum, banging the drum about the DeMultiverse, and I hope that anyone who is a fan of my work will come along with us on the ride. And I thank you, Jason, for giving me the opportunity to talk about it.
No, JM, again, thank you for giving me this opportunity to interview. Thank you very much. And I want to personally thank you for writing comics. I've enjoyed your work over the years. I mean, I've already touched on the milestones like Kraven's Last Hunt, the amazing Justice League run that you had with Keith. And then when I'm looking through your past works, I'm like, oh my God, I remember this story. Oh my God, I remember that story. I remember this one. You know, and it was like,
it happens to me too. I forget about that. Oh, right. I wrote that. I forgot I wrote that. Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Yeah. You know, it's a great ride. Comics have been, you know, I was just saying to somebody, when your childhood passion becomes your adult livelihood, that's a magical thing. And I never forget how blessed I am. And then comics have opened the door for me into so many other things, TV and film and prose and, you know, all because I was this kid reading comics and drawing pictures on the living room floor. Who could ask for anything more, you know?
JM, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Jason.
I wish you continued success with the DeMultiverse Phase 2 Kickstarter campaign. Again, listeners, this campaign is live and will end on August 6th. Again, I want to give a big shout out to David. David, thank you very much for help setting up this interview. If you are a new comic book reader or a lifelong comic book reader, please check out this Kickstarter. There, you know, as we talked about, there's 4 different genres in this Kickstarter campaign, and it's great. It's, you know, there's so many to choose from, and or better yet, just pick up the trade. You have all 4 issues in there. And also I want to also mention, if you get a chance, pick up the Marvel Masterworks Doctor Strange Volume 11. That's going to come out in a few months. It's going to reprint for the first time the Doctor Strange into Shambhala. And JM, I'm going to be honest with you, after talking to you about that and how you were telling me about, you know, Dan Green's, you know, amazing painted artwork, I want to pick this up now. I really want to do and check it out. And plus, not only that, but just the story of, you know, of also what the personal journey that Doctor Strange goes through in this story as well too. That's what I want to see too as well.
Good. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to like a whole new generation of fans discovering this story that's sort of been hidden, you know, hidden in the cracks for years.
Yes. Also too, I also want to mention, of course, Spider-Man Shadow of the Green Goblin miniseries, that the 4th issue comes out on July 31st. Also too, Robin Lives. The Death in the Family, Robin Lives. That first issue first issue is already out in stores. Second issue comes out on August 14th. And please keep an eye out for the Spider-Man Black Costume and Blood. That comes out, I believe, in the first week of August. I think we've covered enough with the
I think that's enough.
So
please, no more.
I want to thank Drew, the co-host of Comics for Fun and Profit, for putting this episode together. Drew, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. And if you are a new listener, please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. And I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys. Aloha.
Hey, it's the good folks at Comics for Fun and Profit reminding you that nobody Patreons like we Patreon. So join us at C4FAP and go over to Patreon/ComicsFunProfit and sign up at a level of your choosing. There's various tiers with various goodies for you. Something that everyone gets at any level is you get to be a part of our Slack channel community. And you get early and ad-free access to all our episodes. But wait, there's more. So go over to Patreon/ComicsFunProfit and check out all we have to offer. We urge you, sign up today.